Now, we're all concerned about the future. We always ask these questions. You know, Hollywood, movies. We watch a lot of movies like I, Robot, Surrogates. Are we going to be controlled by artificial intelligence? Do you think so? Yes, no. If you think that we will be controlled by artificial intelligence, just raise your hand. Oh, quite optimistic audience. That's nice. So over the past few years, ladies and gentlemen, we've read the news of traded accusations between governments with regards to cybersecurity attacks, and tech giants are paying billions of dollars on enhancing their artificial intelligence and mending their security gaps. Now, the question is, are we secured? Do we have to worry about the future? If we have to worry about the future, who should be worried more? Us, end users, individuals, or governments? Because sometimes when you face any cyber attacks and stuff, we say, the government didn't take care of this. So are we worried as individuals, or the governments should take care of this? In this session, we'll do our best to highlight some of our concerns about cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and digitization enablers. I would like to welcome our esteemed speakers on stage. Please welcome Mr. Khalifa Al-Shamsi, Group Chief Corporate Strategy and Governance Officer at Etisalat Group. Mr. Pablo Holman, inventor and cybersecurity expert. That's another word for a hacker. Don't panic. Mr. David Rose, City Science researcher, MIT Media Lab, and he's an expert on the future of the Internet of Things. Last but not least, Mr. Charlie Miller, computer security researcher, GM Cruise. Please welcome. I'm going to go straight away. I'm going to start locally with Mr. Khalifa. Mr. Khalifa, what are your concerns? And let's talk about opportunities. I don't want to start negatively. What are the opportunities in the UAE, especially you as the person who works for a huge telecommunication company in Dubai? How do you maintain cyber security in Dubai and the whole UAE?
Well, thanks for starting with the opportunities, because the last thing we wanted to come into this last session of the day and the whole discussion about fear, about challenges. I think we like to look at an opportunity first, and then we'll look at identify the risk and the security gaps, and then mitigate that and close the gaps. So in the UAE, as all the local people in the audience and the people who's been looking at the UAE as a government, as companies in the UAE, is trying to take a lead in the development of advanced technology and services for the nations, for the government organization, and inspire us, people also in the private sector, not only to enable such things for the other enterprises, but also to allow it for these SMEs of the country. So, this has been demonstrated in the recent years by the government going into a full mobile solutions, and in the recent also announcement by the governments regarding adaptation of blockchain, and the very recent announcements of the AI strategy of the government and the appointment of the AI minister. All of this, you can sniff it in the air of the UAE, all the positiveness that comes out of adopting technology. We are a small nation, but would like to make a big impact, not only for our nation, but throughout the Arab world and the rest of the world. And with that, of course, needs a lot of demand for technologies and platform. And that's where the telecom service provider plays. We are not the one only service the consumer with the enabling their mobile with a SIM card, or powering up your home with a fast broadband. But a lot of the infrastructure also goes underneath in the infrastructure to power the whole nation, fiberizing the full country, not only homes, but offices and government departments, building up state-of-the-art data center to allow organization not to set up their own IT department with all the risk that could come out of it by lack of expertise and talent within the small organizations, by having it managed from the data center and clouds hosted through local provider, ensuring that security solution is being implemented across the devices, the connectivities, and the back-end infrastructure and cloud. So our role is to make sure that all of such gaps for the other clients that we have, government enterprises, starting with our own as a company also, of course, we have our own security NOC that looks always to identify. I mean, security, you cannot, I mean, there is nothing, no such thing as, let's say, a safe environment. Every environment is subject to be vulnerable across the, you know, the experts in the other side, in the dark web side. And for that...
They're not too dark, come on.
And the main thing for us is really
Might be their outfits only.
to build the capabilities, first of all, to really identify and learn internally to identify it in a better manner. Use advanced technology, artificial intelligence based, to be able to identify such vulnerability that exists, that or attacks or any incident that could come out. So, and this goes by building also capabilities, security platforms, security NOCs, and we collaborate also with other operators around the world to be able to cover more of the globe. So it is a dynamic world, technologies are evolving, but we cannot sit back, fear the unknown, think that we are, you know, a lot of risk. I mean, every business runs based on risk management. And when you weigh your risk, and you know exactly, you know yourself, you know your assets, you identify your assets, you find out how fast can you react if there is an incident happen, and what will be the impact of that. Once you have that knowledge about your own assets and the vulnerability and the ability that you have and who's attacking you and how can you mitigate it, once you have that knowledge, it makes you go strong toward the opportunity. Automate your processes, build the best-in-class platform, an intelligent platform like the artificial intelligence right now. Wave is coming across all of our department and all of our organizations. So once this is known and you have the right capability and you update yourself, I think this makes you go strong moving forward.
Nice. Fabio, I want to ask you as an inventor, and you're sort of a hacker, let's say, in a word or another, a cybersecurity expert. You should be more worried, you know, more picky about security when you invent something. Does it make it easier or harder for you as a person who knows what might happen in the future?
Well, I think you know, when you're trying to invent a new technology, you're trying to add a tool to the toolkit for the future. The next step after that is, you know, you're going to create products. And even when you're creating products, you don't have a lot of time and resources to worry about security at first. You never have the same time and attention for finding security problems as the bad guys have. So what you need to do is think about it in a more holistic fashion. You want to be thinking about the life cycle of new technologies, the products, the services that you're deploying them, and what you're going to do about it. So good examples of this are that, like right now, your car has a bunch of computers in it, but it doesn't have system update. So when we find problems with the car, there's no way to patch it. There's no way to fix it. We could roll them all into the dealership and swap out a part in a recall, but basically this is an industry that hasn't figured out that they're basically shipping an iPhone on wheels with no system update. You know, phones didn't have system update before iPhone, right? In PCs, we didn't have system update until sometime in the 90s when we figured out, oh, we better have a way of fixing these problems as we discover them. And so, you know, what you really want to do, I think, a lot of times is look at the entire life cycle of what you're doing and say, okay, what can we learn from the history of security problems? Because a lot of them we experienced already. You know, a lot of the problems you're having with your phone, we experienced with PCs. The problems you're going to have with your car, we experienced with PCs. And there's a lot of solutions for how to deal with that. We have some maturity around that now.
Does that mean you rarely will adopt a new product because you sort of realize in the security arc that it will always be crappy security for the first generation?
Yeah, my approach is exactly the opposite. I always adopt the new thing sooner than everybody else so that I can find the problems and solve them sooner than everybody else. And I stay ahead of the curve that way, I think. Not everybody's equipped to do that well, but there's different schools of thought on that.
I do agree that a lot of the new technologies face the same exact trials that we've already seen before in computers and phones. But I think a big difference is if you look at something like cars, the consequence isn't you get your email stolen, it's like maybe you get hurt or killed or something. And so it's like a whole nother kind of thing to think about now as we computerize more things that have physical control of our world.
Does GM do over-the-air updates yet?
I don't know. But some car makers do. So Tesla does for sure. And some other car companies do. So it is something they're working on.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference in how, like Charlie and I would think about these things, because when you're working in the industry, your job is to think of everything that could potentially go wrong. We've been doing that for as long as we've been using computers. And we've, as hackers in particular, we're paranoiacs and we've imagined everything going wrong. Hackers are going to take over the power grid and shut it down. Everything we've ever imagined going wrong has gone wrong. And you know what? We're kind of doing fine, right? Like even the most catastrophic failures, power grids getting shut down in the Northeast in the U.S., in Ukraine, and all these kinds of things. You know what? We reboot it, we fix it, we patch it, we move on. And I think we're imagining that we're going to have these catastrophic failures. Somebody's going to hack into some car, cause it to crash, and then we're going to fix them in an update, and that's not going to happen again the same way. And so there will be a little bit of failure along the way, and you want to make sure it doesn't happen to you, but I don't think we're going to have this like cataclysmic, like Armageddon where computers all go wrong all at the same time and we don't know how to recover.
Interesting.
So since this is the last session of the day,
yeah.
I think we can have a funny story,
Yeah, sure.
One funny story.
Have anybody saw the Fast and Furious 8, the last movie? So I went with my wife and 13-year-old and walking out, that scene where the hacker hacked all the cars in the city.
Totally realistic hacking.
And controlling them. So we were walking out. My wife is asking me, she said, will that happen with all these cars really? Be hacked and, out of control? So before I start putting a smart answer together, my 13-year-old and looked at her and she said, Mom, all the cars now, more and more, will be connected. And if they have a weak operating system, it will be easily hacked. But I don't think it's going to happen that way. So I stopped and I didn't make any more comments to that. But yes, more and more of the cars will be connected. Today Etisalat is connecting the Toyota, the Nissan cars, a few models in the country. We signed with Tesla to connect all the Tesla cars. And more OEMs of the car will have their cars to be connected. But luckily, there is, especially with the automotive industry, it goes through a lot of safety checks before it gets into that stage.
Interesting. I want to ask Mr. David, but sorry, he made me jump to a question to Mr. Charlie. Charlie, you've hacked into a car, which is the Jeep, and we saw that online. And we remember the tragic incidents of Paul Walker, the star, the hero of Fast and Furious, as Mr. Khalifa mentioned, when he passed away, when he died in a car crash. Some of his fans didn't believe that was a car accident, and they said the car has been hacked. Would it be possible?
So just to give a little more background in case people didn't see the video. So myself and a buddy of mine hacked into a Jeep Cherokee, a 2014 vehicle. And it didn't require any kind of the driver to do anything, touch any buttons. It didn't require you to mod out your car. It was just straight out of the dealership. We could hack it anywhere in the United States and take control of things like the windshield wipers, or make the car accelerate, or make the brakes turn on, or even make the steering wheel turn. So it was pretty scary and dangerous. But given that, I don't stay up at night worrying that Fast and Furious 8 is going to happen. For one thing, when we did it, it was really hard to hack that one car. I don't know how we would scale that to 1,000 cars, and we knew exactly what we were doing. And the other thing is, if you look at all the cars that have ever been hacked remotely, there's only 3 groups of people who have ever done that. One of them is me and my friend Chris, and then there's a group of academics, and there's a team from China that's done it. So in all of the cars that have ever happened, it's only been my researchers like me, not trying to hurt someone, just trying to show that there's problems. And it was hard, right? I worked on it for 9 months, depending on how you count it, or maybe 2 years was the entire project. and I do this for a living. I'm pretty good at it. So it's something, teenagers not going to do it over a weekend. It's not going to be some prank. It's going to take a huge effort to kind of do it. So yeah, it's possible. We showed it was possible, but it's not something that I worry about too strongly.
Cool. David, before I go to your question, I would like to ask the organizers to play the video you provided. So if you guys may play the video, please.
Sure. So this is a video. I've been dissolving technology into everyday objects, and this is a video of my house in Boston where I make my wife put up with a lot of these hacks. Enchanted objects are ordinary things that have the same functionality that they had before, except now they can talk. They're connected. These are ordinary things that have extraordinary capabilities.
When we're creating technology for the home, really we want to make something that's seamless and transparent, and that as opposed to having things sort of call out and draw your attention to it, make it a more ambient experience.
We'll just continue to behave with those everyday objects as we do in the world, and we can remain focused on connectivity between two people.
What we're seeing now is this proliferation of different devices that are, moving out from the cell phone and onto our bodies and into the world.
So in the middle of our living room is a coffee table that has Google Earth embedded in the coffee table. And I just found that having access to this amazing zoomable map completely changes how often we talk about travel and how often we talk about the world and how often we look up places that are mentioned. And it's nice to have this beautiful large reference object sitting in the middle of our living space. Our devices can be a lot simpler, and the interaction to them can be a lot simpler. The internet-connected umbrella can just be an umbrella that only shows whether it's going to rain. You don't need to tap on an icon or do anything that seems sort of artificial.
We come from a time in which we need to adapt to our homes and not the other way around. So what if our home could be a platform that we personalize and we customize? The key is, how do we create this ecosystem, these technologies that allow us to move from one experience to the other in the most seamless, most magical way.
Some people might think that a connected home is overwhelming, that there'll be so much information in the connected home that it's just a cacophonous environment and you wouldn't want to live there. But I think about how we decorate our homes today. We put photographs everywhere, we put paintings up, we put post-it notes up. There's a lot of decoration and adornment in the home. And I think if enchanted objects can be designed in the right way, we're going to want hundreds of them around us.
I think what we're going to see is a new renaissance where designers as well as computer scientists are going to really make a really big impact in the type of technology that we see in the home.
The history of computers has mostly been about efficiency. I think one of the things that's changing is that enchanted objects can be about adding motion and add magic to the fabric of our everyday lives and experiences. Thank you. Thanks.
It's mind-blowing, let me say. I have a question, but before that, I want to check with the audience. If someone has a question after watching this video concerning security, cybersecurity, anyone, raise your hand.
Does anyone want a Google Earth table?
Yeah.
Of course.
It's pretty nice in a big 4K display. Like maps really can't be big enough.
Did you
And
build
it's
it?
really interesting the way you actually promoted the Google Earth table as an interactive thing to interact with your son more. It will make us closer as a family. I hope so in the future. But inventing or let's say implementing such things in your house, and your house is sort of a smart house. Now we have Alexa up and running, and so many people are using it as well. The question is, who has an access to these informations?
Yeah, well, I see all of these as incremental AI. It's not at all big. It's just sprinkling a little bit of connectivity and a little bit of intelligence in the most ordinary things. And so, the Google Earth coffee table doesn't do anything else. It can't play Angry Birds or Minecraft. I mean, of course it can,
Nice.
but I've just decided as the designer that that's all we get to do with that place. And same with the cabinetry. Like, it doesn't talk to anyone in the world. Of course, it's Skype, so it could, but I've decided as a design decision that I want my kids to talk to my parents, and so it's only a one-way phone. I mean, a two-way connection to that dedicated relationship. And I think that's sort of the opportunity with these connected things, is to, rather than having, you know, crazy convergence devices that do everything badly, you just sort of, you sprinkle apps into these objects or furniture and try to do just one thing quite well. And in some ways, it sort of solves, it certainly makes things simpler. The
Makes
UI,
us lazier.
the UI can be simpler, but also in terms of making decisions about data, I really believe in this notion of privacy by design. So in many cases, they don't store any data.
Mm-hmm.
So the question about, well, who has access to the data and for how long, which is sort of the typical question you want to ask about data.
Of course.
Isn't even an interesting question, because if the data is thrown away immediately, like the usage history of the Skype cabinetry or the Google Earth table or your smart pill cap, you know, if it doesn't store a history, then there's no privacy concern.
That's why I connected to Alexa. I linked it to Alexa because, you know, Alexa is being used right now. And if Alexa has an access to your personal information, like what kind of music you like, who did you call, what was the conversation, this is the question. Who has an access to such information?
Well, it's a Faustian bargain. Like, it's a trade, right? Because the more that she knows, the more awesome your tunes will be.
That's true, but at the end of the day, there is someone behind it. Like, there is like a database, like, or it collects data. Where does this data go to?
Right, but I mean, in your case, you have a subtle accent, and Alexa would learn from that and build her neural net to be attuned to the way that you say what you say. So that's another reason for her to have a good memory.
Could be.
When I watch that video as a hacker, the first thing I think of is all the things I can attack, all the kind of, you know, fun I can have if I successfully hack your Skype.
David's going to have a lot of fun when he goes home.
Right.
We didn't agree on that.
Yeah, I just need your IP address, and then we'll go from there and make another video. But no, for real, like I mentioned this earlier, that sort of one of the dangers that's happening, I think, is that as we put computers in more and more devices, it's more chances for things to go wrong. It's more kind of data that is maybe more personal to get out there. So if you steal my email or my credit card number, that's one thing. But if, like, there's been vulnerabilities in smart TVs where attackers can turn on a microphone and listen to what you're doing. Or there's some that even have cameras, and they can turn on a camera and watch you in your living room at any given time. And that sort of thing is even scarier because of the privacy impact of that is just so phenomenal compared to maybe what I have on my phone.
I've heard some nice examples of hacked things talking to other things too. Like, somebody hacked a baby monitor, which is pretty easy to hack, which talks to your Alexa, which then opens your door through the smart home, you know, through your smart lock. And so, you know, once the cascade falls,
Right.
you know,
this is something we didn't have to worry about 10 years ago for sure. Probably not even 5 years ago, right?
What about the incident happened on Facebook? It was, I think, in July, last July. They had to shut down 2 computers because they figured the 2 computers are talking to each other. Pablo,
I don't think you have to worry about this stuff.
Really?
Guys.
Oh, say why. Say why.
Oh, why?
Because these are farcical situations. And yeah, there's no question technically at some point Charlie or maybe I is going to figure out how to hack your baby monitor and talk to your Alexa and open your door. But we're going to do it one time on YouTube to show off, and then the baby monitor is going to get patched, and then we're going to get bored and move on to something else. And maybe some Russian hackers are going to try and figure out how they can take advantage of this on a larger scale in the meantime before the patch comes out. But essentially, these are not large-scale problems that you have to worry about. I don't think it makes sense to send all you guys home worried about how IoTs are going to be hacked. Use them, play with them. If you have an actual problem, unplug it, and then we'll move on.
Just to jump on,
Yeah.
I think I'd like to agree with that, because I think the real concern that we should all be having isn't these one-time hacks, but it's sort of the progression of what Alexa does when she's another member of the family and your kids are mostly talking to her rather than talking to you. Or, you know, you used to ask your wife for fashion advice, and now Amazon Look is sitting there in your bedroom and giving and saying,
Yeah.
with their style guide, they're saying this outfit looks better than this outfit. And so I don't know if she does that very well yet, but I think
Yeah.
what's sort of interesting is the more insipid encroachment of the conversations that we used to have with people now being had, or services being performed
Yeah.
by neural nets.
I mean, all
which
of-
is compelling, but also
Right.
changes
this is
our
basically the
relationships.
same thing as sugar, right? Like at some point you get hooked on it and you have to decide how much of this is improving my life and how much of it is starting to ruin my life, right? And you have to make smart choices about this. I mean, I've been on email since 1982, and yeah, it took over my life for a while, but eventually I built up an immunity, and now I can safely ignore it. It doesn't ruin my day. A lot of people still struggling with that. So there's an adoption curve where at some point you're going to like
But
overdo
it depends on the social background and who's using technology now. All the new generations are, when they're 6 months, they use iPads. So automatically, when they grow up, it's something normal to have it on their daily basis. And again, it's collecting data. Like if there is an access to it, it is collecting data. So not everybody would have this conscious about using technology in a certain way, and they might not have the knowledge to pause and think about what should they use, what do they need, and what's necessary, what's not.
But there's
let's go
nothing
back to
necessarily
the video
evil about
that
the
was
collection
shown.
of data.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the video.
Okay.
And the future of Internet of Things. I mean, this video really demonstrates the future of Internet of Things and how the connected devices will move away from only the human interacted smart devices into full-fledged Internet of Things. The biggest use case is a smart home, and all the devices will be there. Mobility is one of the future of all connected of things, and industrial Internet of Things is one of the biggest thing. Now, do we fear and put all the, the risk around it? No, we take that in order to see how can we develop ourselves, ease our life, better monitor our home.
As
better
humans,
monitor-
okay, let's go back as
same
you guys,
thing-
as a telecommunication company. How
And
are
the
you
same thing in the
utilizing
factory. Same thing in the factory. How can I run my factory better, reduce the errors in the factory? How do I monitor, let's say, the fleets of my cars of the organization? How do I use less fuel? How do I make sure that we have less accident? All of this will be developed by solution which is done today, and will move from connectivity phase, which is happening right now. I mean, everything is get connected and get some sort of good reporting. And then there's a data collection phase, and there is all this information that is being gathered from various devices, whether it be wearable devices on the human, in the home, in the car, and other things. And then we'll move from the data phase into more of the AI phase that will take all of this data and learn from it and automatically give you a better decisions. This is where I think a lot of the energies by the brains of this world should go to make sure the productivity of the human beings is improved, and the productivity of organization and factories and government is improved. And for us, there is one role that we do it as an organization internally for better servicing our own customer using this technology and using our own data and connecting our things. And the other role, we use it as enablers for digital enabler for our government and the digital enabler for the society. But there is that aspects of awareness and education to the end user. The baby monitor itself, I mean, it's probably the default username and password for your smart TV or for the baby monitor was not changed, because the normal human beings will buy it and connect it, have no idea about all of this. So there is a role that the organization that made that, or the organization that connect that, the service provider that connect that, or the government or other entities in the society should educate the general public the do's and don'ts when using this technology, because it's great improving your life and lifestyle and organization, but there are also some basic steps to be done at the user's level. I mean, for us, for example, in the connectivity level, we'll have to make sure that we have protection against the availability of the access with the DDoS attack and other activities like that. Encryption to be done in the connectivity rather than to be used, a connectivity without any standardization that will be used by the normal person, not knowing about the standards of the access, and will be using it. So I think we can identify the risk and we'll be able to mitigate it as industries in order to make sure that we take the best out of it.
Okay, what are the risks?
I think the sort of a point of hope. Pablo has one of these sexy iPhone 10s next to me that unlocks with his face.
Yes.
And I think this is really nice because he doesn't have to make up a password. It's just the contours of his cheeks, and there's nobody else that can use his phone except his twin brother or whatever. So, like, that's interesting because that means that we don't have to invent the password for our TV that's going to be hacked or for anything else. As this technology, as this depth sensing, I think Apple calls it a true depth camera, as that gets cheaper, more commoditized, like that's probably going to be built into cars, Alexa, all of these things, so that it will be a lot more effortless and hard to defeat that key.
Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things aren't, I don't think they're big risks for you. Like even if you could simulate my face, you still got to steal my phone, which is never more than like an arm's reach away from me. So it's not a very scalable attack. How many people's phones can you get a hold of and then make fake faces for them? It's just not a big deal to worry about. You want to evaluate these technologies for, is it a net gain for you? Is this technology helping your life? You guys probably all use Google every day. Do you remember sending Google $1 ever? Right? When was the last time you wrote a check to Google? You don't. And the reason is Google's collecting a bunch of data from you. They're figuring out how to sell ads and make money off of you. And it's a bargain that's worthwhile for you because you're getting a lot of amazing technology and features and capabilities from Google, seemingly free. Yeah, we imagined that it was all going to go south. We imagined that Google having all this data about us was going to be terrible. So far, it hasn't been. So, I think in a lot of cases, what you want to do is live your life, adopt the technologies, try them out, figure out if they're good, and when you have a problem, then change. But until you have a problem, we don't have to worry about it too much.
Interesting. Now, I've been told that I have to wrap up the session, so I would like to ask the audience if anyone has a question. Yeah, there are. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take you. Don't worry. The woman with the glasses, the lady, she was like, "Can we get a mic? Just to state your name, the organization you work for. What's your question? If you have a specific person to give the question to, just please go ahead.
I don't think we have a mic.
Do you have a microphone?
Use your stage.
Come on stage. Come here.
Come here. You can use my mic.
Come here, please.
Come in.
The mic
Wait,
is
here
coming.
comes the mic.
Okay.
Great. Yeah.
Here you go.
She's 40, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So my English name is Orange, so that's pretty easy to remember, although that's not my real name. I'm from China. I work in Emirates Literature Foundation, so I don't really have a technical background whatsoever. But coming here, listening to this cyber security talk, I just feel a lot less secure, even despite your optimism. Because
I'm failing.
I don't really get that optimism that you do, because you're saying it's very hard to do attacks at scale.
Well,
but what everyday people is concerned about is even if it's one device that gets attacked and just one or two tiny thing gets leaked out, and their whole life could be screwed.
Okay, let me break it down for you. Everything is already broken, okay? There's nothing that's truly secure.
You're making it worse.
Okay. But you don't have a security problem. What you have is a risk management problem, right? And the truth is the risk for you isn't so bad. So in security, we have this maxim, which is that if you're being chased by a bear, you don't have to be able to run faster than the bear. You only have to be able to run faster than your friends.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, as long as it doesn't happen to me, then it's fine.
Yes.
Until it happens to me, then I'm saying, okay.
Right.
Okay,
so what I think you need to do
it, so.
is figure out how big of a threat is there against you, and that could be different for different people. and then make a rational choice about what resources to expend against, making yourself more secure or in a less risky situation. And for most individuals, I don't think there's much you can do.
Yeah, so see, that's where I feel concerned about, because that sounds really passive.
But I also don't think there's much that you need to do, right? I mean, every credit card in the world has been stolen more than once. When are we going to get around to using yours? I don't know, right?
Here you go.
Sorry,
Just think
I
this
wish I
way.
had better news, but I honestly think that you have better things to do in your life than worry about trying to
Exactly.
make yourself secure.
There
Do
are
you
other
have
people to
any
take care of
advice?
this.
Sorry.
Just stop think, other than just don't think about it.
Okay, the way I think as a person,
Better
I'm a
advice?
normal individual.
Yeah.
I
Any better
think this
advice?
way. I just think this way, if you have something, come to the experts. Other than that, just take care of yourself, enjoy your life. If there is something went wrong, you have other experts to take care of. Like security is not really our concern as end users, more like, professionals.
I'm actually even
the
more
way-
pessimistic than these guys, so I won't scare you anymore. But if you want to do something to try to help improve yourself, your security, consider two-factor authentication. Most services have that. It's pretty easy to use, and it'll save you like tons of time. So I don't use antivirus. I don't really do much security. My home network has no password on the Wi-Fi, but I do use two-factor, and I do use a password manager. Those are the only two tools that I
do both of those things. And
Okay,
I don't
that's a
keep
good-
all of my money in one bank account.
Cool,
Use
thank you. Do
multiple
we have
banks.
another question? So just, go ahead, please. Make it short, please. Sorry. Summarize your question.
Hi, my name is James. I work for Donata. So we've had it said that it's not such a big deal when things get hacked because, they get hacked and then they get patched and everything's okay. But the trouble is these kind of one-time hacks come up so often that hacking becomes a constant phenomenon. And I'm not going to call out any names, but there's been significant evidence of widespread corporate espionage that goes on in the cyberspace. And that's a serious issue in terms of international law and basically stealing. So I was wondering if you could comment on that.
I think the way I think about it is, look, if you were any country in the world, say besides the United States, would you rather control our land or our computers? I mean, the economic value is in corporations. It's in the computers they run. It's the target of choice. I'm not telling you things are secure. I already said they're not. But what I believe is that, in those contexts, we live in a world where this kind of corporate espionage from computer hacking is very real. And so again, what I think is you have to assess what the threat is for you and your company, and you need to expend your resources proportionate to that. And there are things that you could do as a company to make sure that you are not the low-hanging fruit, right?
Do we have more time or we have to? Okay, cool. We have more time. So the gentleman over there with the nice colored Kandora. Your name and question, if you work for any organization, please.
Thank you. I'm Mohammed Hussein from Mohammed bin Rashid School of Government. Actually, I will leave the hacking side and I will go through deeply through the e-services. Some of the websites that I don't want to include their names in this session, they include this condition under the terms and conditions part when you, for example, create an account. This part is about your data may be included in marketing side for marketing the service, the same as you create in the same, I don't know if you understand me, if you have a cloud storage, for example, Dropbox or Mega or kind of, if you put your documents, your photos.
You mean your personal data?
Yes, personal data.
Okay.
So they include in the term and conditions when you create the account that
which we never read.
Actually, I read.
Okay, you just
that
take yes.
That your data may be marketed for the service. So how risk it is?
Well, you need to choose.
Anyone would like to?
Okay, I believe the real question is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just I'll paraphrase in case you didn't get it. I believe the question is when you give your personal data to someone like
Online.
Dropbox or Google Drive or something, the terms of service allow them to look at your data and, in some cases, sell it or make decisions based on that to market stuff to you. And personally, I just believe that's up to you to decide if that's a good deal for you.
But you should understand that that data can be analyzed in a way that is more powerful than you can imagine.
Yeah.
Right? Like somebody can do semantic analysis and probably understand your affinities or your trending affinities in a way that maybe you didn't even understand. From a text perspective and from a photos and video perspective. They can classify everything that are in your photos and discover, like, you're going to have an interest in camping and you're going to have a dog and you're going to get a new house. And they can predict sort of when that's going to happen and proactively market services to you before you have those interests.
I actually don't mind it that much. Like, if you're going to show me an advertisement anyway, it might as well be something I like.
Yeah, my attitude's the same.
Yeah. some of these things are socially unacceptable here. So, for example, once they released, like, I think it was last year, what was the most Googled thing in Saudi, everybody got shocked. Anyways, so let's go to another question.
There was one over here, too.
Yeah, sure. Okay, they're asking me to end at just one last question. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Floyd from ENY. The comments on the stage have kind of been directed at individual consumers and then also the companies associated with them. But my real concern, similar to the young lady who spoke before, is on nation-state actors and governments who could have access to this information, which could then be used for some very bad situations. And I'd like to hear your comments on that, because so far we've only talked about, say, Alexa and retail and consumers, but there's bigger issues over the concern of data and privacy and what governments can do with that.
Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, I mean, one of the main concerns for large organizations and government is really securing their assets and securing the information and protecting it from outside, let's say, entities. And one of the main things the government works on a standalone or with other providers within their own nation is, first of all, identify their vulnerabilities, identify the assets that they have, identify the exposure level, make sure that the connections that they have along with the world is protected, is also protected against any attack on availability that could shut down certain assets. Making sure that also there is a security monitoring centers available in the countries in order to check all the assets and all the attacks that it's happened. And most importantly all of these availability is the human factor, is the availability of IT security experts available within country. And I think this is one of the main lacking things in the region as a whole. And this is where a lot of the governments in this region is trying to build also capable people from the same country in educating them through the postgraduates into after graduate also, in order to make sure that they have the right talents within the country. And of course, with that, as I mentioned earlier, it's only about risk mitigation and risk management. You will not have 100% protection against any external attack, but you'll have to also identify how fast can you react to an attack, and what will be the worst case scenario if something happened, and how fast do you react to it. So, I mean, you have to be always on alert. You'll have to have a 24/7 center that monitor all of your assets. You'll have to make sure that you have full visibility in all the assets. I mean, I know a lot of organizations that they probably don't have a count of all their assets that is exposed, because they don't understand that server in that particular building, who does it belong to. So there is an awareness and an education in all of the Gulf countries right now. It's been establishing a security agencies that looks about giving guidance also to these governments, private sector organization, apart from the global standardization and security, how you need to be able to make your checklist and to do a periodics also checks to make sure to identify vulnerabilities and work on it.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank our panelists, Mr. Khalifa, Mr. Pablos, David, and Mr. Charlie. Thanks for all of you, and sorry for keeping you till now. And that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again. Once again, we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.